Hello guys, welcome back to Kamau Mahakoe Central. Now, I'm starting a new book this morning. The title of this book is There's Something You Should Know About Leroy. There's something you should know about Leroy. Now, what is it that you should know about Leroy? And who is Mr. Leroy? What is the secret that this Leroy is hiding from us that we need to know? You're going to find out if you stay with me through the chapters of this book. I don't know how many videos it's going to take. I did Yellow and Me. That was the first book I did, and that took about 5 or 6 videos. So I did like 2 chapters each, roughly. This book, this has how many chapters? Let's see. This has 24 chapters. Okay. So this is about twice the size of Yellow and Me. But we'll see how it goes. Just stay with me. Stay with me and let me know your thoughts as the story develops, as you get to understand the characters, more and more, and the plot. So I'm going to read the blurb. I'm going to read the blurb for you. There's something you should know about Leroy. She poses nude, not naked. There's a difference. Prudence is anything but. She lacks the foresight, discretion, tact, and, prudence that would save her from some very sticky situations. She's a liberal-minded and uninhibited guitarist and part-time artist model who is in love with her best friend Leroy. Leroy's sexual orientation is, ambiguous, at least to those who think they know him well. In drops the stunningly beautiful 16-year-old Cheyenne, fleeing from abuse in Montego Bay and seeking refuge in Greater Portmore, a community on the verge of plummeting into full-scale crime. Inspector Lloyd is kept on his toes, what with all the guns, drugs, and sex being passed around. Will he be able to rescue the innocents from the clutches of violence? Set in the sunshine city of Portmore, There's Something You Should Know About Leroy is a contemporary satire on this dynamic Jamaican community that is bursting at the seams. Will their lovers' triangle morph into a plain old square, or a circle perhaps? The cycle of innocence merging into experience, teaching us that we know not what we think we know. So I live in Portmore, right? This is where I am right now, in Portmore. I've been living in Portmore for the past 25 years. And this book was set in Portmore, in Greater Portmore. So you're going to find out a lot about this Sunshine City. We call it the Sunshine City. This book has a lot of information about Portmore, and you're going to be finding out about Leroy, about Prudence, and about the stunningly beautiful Cheyenne. Alright, so here we go then. So chapter 1. There's something you should know about Leroy. Dedication. Who did I dedicate this to? So I dedicated this book to Joan. Who is Joan? That would be Joan Armatrading, my favorite singer. To Joan, raw talent, raw beauty, raw soul, nothing cooked, never will we lie to ourselves. Joan Armatrading's song, I Can't Lie to Myself. Very powerful song. Check out that song and listen to the words. I can't lie to myself. So I'm saying in this dedication to Joan Armatrading, never will we lie to ourselves. Acknowledgements. Don't judge a book by the cover. Don't judge a cover by the book. Okay, ma'am. Chapter 1. That's how I plan to make my millions, said Prudence, her head thrown back, reflecting through narrowed eyes, lips pursed like a smoker exhaling. By posing nude in front of some thirsty, broke pocket artists, chuckled Leroy. Idiot, I meant my musically. He knows what you mean, Prue. He's just playing the ass, said Wayne. He adjusted the sketch pad, which he had propped up on the easel, and reeled more tape from his charcoal pencil. Prudence used the interlude to get up and stroll over to where Leroy sat, stroking his canvas with dabs of paint. She didn't bother to put on her robe. What the frig is this? She poked her finger onto the canvas, smearing the fresh paint, then wiped her finger in Leroy's hair, chuckling. Is this supposed to be me? You can't appreciate good art, you know, Prue. No reverence whatsoever, argued Leroy. Piece of crap. Prue, the model is supposed to stay still, you know that. Wayne pretended to complain. How can I sketch you if you're always getting up and moving around? Assume your position, soldier. He feigned a military salute. Prudence marched over to the chair. I'm going to make millions playing my guitar. I'll be a solo guitarist, like Tradewind, or at least a lead guitarist in a band. It's not about the money, Prue. We all know that, Leroy said. I want fame, fortune, and the satisfaction of doing what I want. All the thrills, frills, and spills. I want to roll in dough. I'm not buying into the poor musician happily basking in his craft nonsense. I'll come to all your concerts, Prue, but for now, just sit still. Go back to where you were before. Wayne's voice was on the edge of annoyance. He didn't have much patience with fidgety models, especially this one, whom he suspected was being deliberately fidgety to annoy him. Prudence picked up on his mood and decided to submit. The room was brightly lit and very warm, though occasionally a cool mist of air drifted in from the St. Andrew Hills. The sofa was old and rustic, giving the desired effect. A colorful cotton blanket with adinkra patterns was spread on the sofa, and on that she lay, on her side, right leg slightly up and bent, left leg outstretched for contrast. She used one to prop up her chin, and the other rested coyly on her knee, indicating leisure, aristocracy. Chocolate skin, not flawless, with blotches in just the right places to validate a body having been lived in for 23 years. 2 good-sized scars on her left knee and one on her right. Maud had warned her about the constant running down the pathway. She had taken a good number of falls when she was little. Add to that the time when she bathed, when the barbed wire had scraped her shin when she had gone to retrieve the football from the Water Commission property and had needed a tetanus shot. Plus other minor scratches that had all but faded. A body lived in, perfectly imperfect. With these 2 she could play around a bit. They were, after all, her best friends. But Prudence had been an artist model for 4 years. She knew when and how and why to keep perfectly still. For 15 to 20 minutes, she would all but breathe. Sometimes the session spanned a full 2 hours, and there would be breaks in between when she could rest, walk, slap someone on the head top, mess up somebody's paint, smudge a few lines, shriek in horror at their monumental failure at capturing her essence. Then, for another 20 minutes, she was inanimate again, a naked nymph suspended in sleep, with eyes wide open but otherwise absorbed. Or, Sometimes the eyes were downward turned, pretending to be coy. Sometimes they stared dead center in arrogant divaness. You have a problem with something? She nailed it. Sometimes they looked off into the distance as some spirit who beckoned. The hands had been the hardest parts of her body to tame. Her fingers always wanted to tap or strum at something. It was in their nature. Worse, because these empty moments were the best times to stock up on dreams of being on stage, playing her guitar to shrieks of adoration, bowing as they cast a barrage of roses at her feet, begging and pleading for an encore. She always decided to give them an encore, despite her manager's insistence that she needed her rest. Another big show tomorrow night in London, 2 more in Rio the next day. You need your rest, Miss Prudence. Okay, Godfrey, but just one more time for the fans. Just 5 more minutes, Prue. I'm almost done, said Wayne. I'm not half done yet. Don't be so selfish, said Leroy. You're never done, Lee, laughed Prudence. But it's just as well. It won't look like me anyway. Shh! Don't talk, Lee, laughed Prudence. But it's just as well. It won't look like me anyway. Shh! Don't talk, Prue. Fix back your head. You know, you don't take us seriously when you pose for us. How come you sit so still for all the other students? They pay her more, Leroy muttered under his breath to some wicked cut eyes from Prudence, who had just exited backstage with her millions of roses. In truth and in fact, they should pay us more. It's pittance we get for the noble job we do, sighed Prudence. Brisk steps were heard approaching along the corridor. That would be Mr. Dean. Closing up time. A firm tap on the door was all they needed. All rooms on the campus on PAVE were to be closed by 9 p.m., doctor's orders. Any other inspiration, installations, or executions had to take place off campus, preferably at home, until tomorrow. Each artist was pleased with his work. Wayne, a portraitist who only did illustrations and never ever dabbled in the desecration of paint, as he called it, had produced 2 charcoal sketches of Prudence, both in exactly the same position, one 3 times the size of the other. Leroy, an abstract painter who used any media on hand, had produced a painting which he decided he would call Prue. Other than that, there was no correlation between the subject and the piece. Blobs, blotches, bleeps, colors merging, colliding, fussing, fighting, running away, uniting. Can't keep still. Prue. Prudence got dressed there and then, guided her underwear up and beyond her thighs, the undulating bulge of her buttocks to rest under the arch of her lower back. Sensible shorts for tropical weather, she always explained, though it was night and a wee bit chilly. A neat blue camisole and leather sandals. Then she hauled her bag over her shoulder and took up her guitar. She hardly ever used the guitar case. It was either left at home or at school. Too cumbersome to keep removing the guitar because she always felt like playing, even when she was walking. Let's hit the road, guys. It's Friday night. I'm dead tired, but I have tutorials all day tomorrow, Wayne explained. He was a 4th-year student preparing for final exhibition. A grueling task. At 27 years old, this was his 2nd time repeating final year. Twice he had failed, miserably. This was his last go at it. He was determined to get it right this time. Neither of the 3 owned a motor vehicle of any sort, so all their accoutrements were loaded into hefty backpacks that made them look like Sherpas off to the Himalayas. The life of the artist, a rigorous, tortuous climb to almost certain death. For most, cold and bitter in the end, exhilarating for only a handful. The Performing and Visual Expression School was situated at the oxbow curve of a cul-de-sac, Goldwyn Avenue, in the commercial section of Shortwood in Kingston. It had stood steadfast in that spot for 2 decades, despite efforts from the business district to have it relocated. The noise, they said, nerve-wracking. The drummers they found particularly irritating, with their non-stop boom-boom nonsense, as it was perceived by the executives in their quiet offices on the 6th floors of the Goldwyn Avenue business complex. As fortune and misfortune would have it, a section of Goldwyn Avenue led onto a vacant lot that was used as a dump. Misfortune for the snobby businessmen who petitioned for years to have the lot sold and developed, or at least cleared of the junk. Fortune for the art students at PAVE who saw the junkyard as a sumptuous all-you-can-eat buffet at an all-inclusive resort. There were rusty car parts teeming with scrap metal that could be put to good use in their installations. Old metal springs from mattresses, discarded plyboards with inches of rusty nails sticking out of them. To anyone else, an advertisement for tetanus. To the visionary students, a voyage into expressionism. They combed the junk daily, some of them hourly. Who knew just when a particular piece of treasure might join the ranks of the dispossessed and needed rescuing? One had to be vigilant. They emerged from the open lot with their prizes, held high or being dragged along to make a delightful scraping sound on the pavement that chafed the executives, peeping down through their blinds. The students would compare their bounty like pirates after a loot, each jealous of the other's junk, sometimes offering barter or outright naming a price. Sometimes, after intense negotiations, even hard cash was brought to bear. Occasionally, someone was accused of foul play. A few friendships had been known to hang on the balance. Always, the junk was put to splendid use, and depending on the skill and name of the artist, resold for several thousands of dollars. It was almost 9:30. The offices were all closed tightly now, though, save for a few lone rangers whose lights still beamed amid the darkness of the towering office buildings. These were the workaholics, those intent on squeezing in some overtime for some extra dough. Pitiful, Prudence sneered. Only a handful of students were still trickling out of the huge iron gates of PAVE. Prudence wrapped her arms around Leroy's shoulder as they walked to the bus stop. Her guitar bobbed to her front and side. "Young lady, aren't you a bit skimpily clad to be out at this chilly hour?" asked a well-dressed woman who had just closed up her office building and was heading towards her Audi. "You'll attract the wrong kind of attention. And then you girls blame men when they make advances at you. You call it down on yourselves." The woman was clearly addressing Prudence, though her tone was rhetorical, judgmental, reproachful. She entered her car and started the ignition, still muttering. Prudence giggled. "Lee, aren't you going to defend my honor?" Leroy smiled, almost bashful. Wayne shook his head. "Or do you think that my shorts are too skimpy too?" "You would expect educated people to be a bit more liberal-minded. You're a grown woman. You wear what you want to wear," said Wayne. "Who can tell those rich women anything when Carnival comes? They prance around New Kingston, gyrating with almost nothing on. Double standards." He shook his head. The bus came. They jumped in and sat. Had it been a bit earlier, they would have had to stand all the way to Halfway Tree. But at this hour of the night, the buses on this route were empty. From Halfway Tree, they would take another bus to Portmore. "Hey Lee, let's jam in the park a little. I want you to hear something." Without waiting for a response, Prudence led the way up the steps of the park in Halfway Tree Square. There was still much hustle and bustle in that part of the town. Vendors still plied their wares from every nook and cranny of the square. In the adjacent terminal, buses swung in and out at breakneck speed, conductors pelting out their destinations and coercing commuters into their vehicles. The nearby taxi stand at the opposite side of the park was its usual hub. Prudence sat on one of the sidewalks of the park, facing the taxi stand. Immediately, she started to strum on her guitar, resting the body of the instrument on her bent knee. "I've been working on this one since yesterday. Tell me what you think, guys." She closed her eyes and strummed, fretting with her left fingers, caressing the strings with her right. Leroy and Wayne sat on either side of her. Prudence was strumming on her guitar. "This is Prue at her most uninhibited," thought Leroy. Her hair was parted into about 30 sections, each plait about an inch in length. The park was lit, but she had chosen a somber corner close to the hedge. Here, the light was just enough to tease her cheeks each time she held back her head in private rapture. "I really like it, Prue," said Wayne. "Let's hope that scholarship comes through so you can go study some music big time, eh girl?" "You know it," shouted Prudence, as if waking up to a grand reality. She giggled. A photographer who plied his trade daily in the park was in the process of packing up. He glanced over at the three students and smiled. "Hey, look, a superstar musician," he chuckled. "Can I take your picture?" "Sure, why not?" said Prudence, listening out for Godfrey to caution her about the paparazzi. "Come a little further into the light," said the photographer. "Yes, beautiful, beautiful." End of chapter 1. Okay, chapter 2. So guys, remember, Zande and Kim are here for this new book that I'm reading. Are you old enough to be listening to this book? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they're old enough for this book. This book has some stuff in it, guys. Chapter 2. The bus pulled out of the terminus in Halfway Tree and headed down Hagley Park Road. It was way past 10 o'clock. There was something very artistic about being out this time of night. It gave them a heady feeling, the zealous visionary ahead of his time and therefore behind time, artistically late, a necessary consequence of the honing process. Prudence found herself in love with the word hone. The conscientious effort devoted to the development of a skill. The honing process, she believed, was indispensable to anyone at PAVE, at least anyone who was bent on breaking through the mass of mediocrity and emerging as truly great. Honing gave one international appeal, so to speak. She had made up her mind to put in all the hours she could into honing. Practice, practice, practice. As luck would have it, music came naturally to her, and the honing process, as grueling as it seemed to be for some, was a breeze for her. When she strummed on her guitar, she was blissfully unaware of the hours rolling by. She only wished there was an office where one could go and lodge an official complaint about the meager 24 hours allotted to each day, and try to negotiate for an extension. It seemed a few great men and women in history had managed to do so with some luck. More time for honing. Take now, for instance. She sat playing her guitar in the crowded bus. Wayne was fast asleep in the seat behind hers, his head buried face down in the bag on his lap. Every now and then, the passenger next to him was forced to wonder, was he breathing? Leroy sat beside Prudence, as exhausted as Wayne, but not yet asleep. As the bus jerked, his head bobbed groggily, wearily. Prudence was always the perky one. She brimmed with energy even after the most grueling day. She was the same age as Leroy, born in the same month, 3 days apart. A little bunny, her father used to call her, always scampering. But there he was now in prison for murder. And she, on the bus, wedged between two droopy friends, strumming the tune to Redemption's song at the request of the conductor. They cleared the city streets without incident and crossed over the Causeway Bridge, one of the two entrances into the suburbs of Portmore. By this time, the conductor had been reeling out requests like crazy, and the driver had turned off the radio so they could zoom in on the guitarist. Prudence was in the middle of a rendition. There was a loud pow. Wayne woke with a start, disoriented. The bus screeched over to the side of the road, along the lonely stretch between the bridge and the toll booth. Punctured tire. Everybody out. Oh, frig. How long is this going to take now? Just a couple minutes, announced the conductor. We have a spare. If anything, we might even be able to carry on without the spare. He and the driver walked along the side of the bus with a flashlight, assessing the damage, while the sleepy passengers filed on to the soft shoulder. Oh, hell! Never seen this in my life, exclaimed the conductor. It was worse than he had thought. 2 tires puncture one time, front tire and back tire. But what is not this? He scratched his head, scanning the stretch of road behind the bus to see what could have caused such a phenomenon. The driver walked a couple paces up the road in the direction of the bridge, searching for clues, equally puzzled. Is the dopey woman who roam along the stretch of road, suggested one passenger. She come out at this hour of night and cause all manner of trouble. Is a nurse woman who was killed along this stretch years ago. Idiot! How dopey can puncture 2 tires? Yelled another passenger. Stop talk foolishness. Worse like how I want to reach my yard now. This is a dead stock, relented one man. This bus can't fix tonight. Cat nyam with supper. A few of the passengers had started moving ahead to clear the bus so they could hitchhike, but most thought this was too dangerous, especially at this hour of the night. Let's walk, said Prudence restlessly. Doesn't make any sense standing over here. Walk, moaned Wayne. He had calculated that he would have been in bed dreaming by now, wrapped up tight in Marva's arms. Prue, you're crazy, said Leroy, but he knew she was serious. There was no way that busybody Prudence would stand idly by, waiting for 2 spare tires to be replaced, or even 1 for that matter. She had already started walking off. The other 2 followed. Walk where? Said Wayne. The back road, Prudence replied, as if where else? The back road was that stretch of road that veered left after clearing the toll booth, past the entrance leading to the Women's Correctional Facility at Fort Augusta, and continuing along to Bayside. The whole stretch of road spanned a couple miles. a 5-minute drive along the south coast of Portmore. Back road was a somewhat derogatory term, and the entire stretch had been subject to scrutiny, having a reputation for harboring ladies of the night. The countless motels and hideouts were notorious for convenient daytime trysts and nighttime hanky-panky, even among the city's elite. Some legitimate and serious-minded businesses had cropped up, and the powers that be had tried to restore some decency to the area. But the rumors persisted. The back road was the shortest way to Bayside, and this was the preferred route for motorists heading further to Nagahead or Greater Portmore, rather than taking the winding bus route past the mall. If we're gonna walk, let's walk along the main, Wayne advised, the night air restoring his perspective. Being the oldest, he felt obliged to have a sober outlook on things. In any case, it's safer, and another bus might come along. The back road is much shorter, countered Prudence. We'll get to Bayside in no time. Then we can get a route taxi to Greater Portmore. Wayne is right, said Leroy sagaciously. Let's walk along the main road, Prue. Maybe another bus will come. He was trying to be diplomatic. Prudence had already gone a few yards down the back road. The other two followed. A few vehicles zipped by in the direction of the bridge. It was Friday night. These were the clubbites. They had already gone home from work, changed, grabbed their purses, and were heading out for a night on the town. Fewer cars whizzed in the opposite direction, the way Prudence and the others were headed. Let's hurry, guys. I don't like this back road at all, Wayne said with much concern. It's as safe as any other road in Portmore in terms of crime, at least, reflected Prudence. Before long, they came upon the neon signs advertising the motels and restaurants, some with vehicles parked out front, others dark and apparently deserted, save for a few stray dogs. Occasionally, they passed a woman, a group of women, some leaning against light posts or walls, others bent with heads through car windows, negotiating. Their clothing suggested the case which they had been slipped on. Their clothing suggested the ease with which they had been slipped on, and the ease with which they could be removed for a small fee. It's the first I've been round here this hour, Leroy said, to no one in particular. So it's really true what they say. Lee, everybody knows what these women are up to, laughed Prudence. You thought it was only rumors? As they continued down the road, one of the women broke from the pack and headed in their direction. Wayne adjusted his bag upon her approach, as if to shield himself. You guys shopping for some beef? She asked, very direct and businesslike. She zeroed in on Wayne. No thanks, said Wayne, not tonight. You look like you have a nice sweet steak.